Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being.
Let's check in and see how people are doing and see where everybody is. Rosemarie, where are you these days?
Okay, so I decided to remeasure the frame because using the selvage wasn't working.
Okay.
So when I did that, and it took a long time to get the 4 right angles and really get a rectangle, which I think I have now. And it makes a difference of 1 point, what is it? 1.8 centimeters from the face.
Mm-hmm.
So my strategy, because dividing that into 4 is 4.5. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's correct. So I thought I would give 4 to the lengths and 5 to the sides.
Okay.
Split it up that way. Does that make sense?
No.
The math sounds weird. Okay. So
you remeasured your face to
No, the frame.
Yeah, so you remeasured the frame based on a new measurement of the
No.
base? No, old measurement.
It was based on getting right angles. It was just because I had cut off a piece of it, so I was really dealing of the frame. So I was really dealing with the smallest amount of fabric that I could.
Oh,
See what I'm
okay.
saying? So I made
Okay.
it as big as I could with right angles.
Okay, on the frame.
On the frame.
Right angles.
We're talking about this frame. Yeah.
Okay.
And it just came out shorter than I thought. So
Okay.
so
So you're going to be covering up 1.8 centimeters of the face with the frame.
correct.
Okay. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So I didn't want to have like 0.45 of a change in each side. It just, I would have 0.5 on the lengths and 4.4 on the side.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I would say have you already cut the frame out?
I
You've
didn't
cut
do
it?
that. No, I didn't do that.
Okay.
I'm just marking now.
What I would do when you have it marked before you cut it is actually pin it to the, go around and pin it, an edge of it to the face, around the edge of the face, just to make sure that it's long enough. Because it
Oh, I
sounds
see.
like,
I mean, I see. So, just,
or you could just measure it.
or, no, I like that idea. If I fold it, I just keep folding it around.
Right,
Okay,
right.
sure. No, that's like, why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, we can work on that.
Thank you.
So Maria, what's up for your Rakasu?
I've sewn the corners of the frame
Oh,
and
wow.
pinned round
Great,
the face and frame together. And I'm
great.
thinking, oh, this next bit looks a bit intricate, because you've got to fold it under, haven't you, and stitch it around or something like that.
So that, yeah, you've got to fold the frame, you've got to fold the seam allowance of the frame.
Yeah, so I've done that and pinned it under.
Okay, yeah, so I'd have to look, but I think the next thing with that, I'm not sure if they want you to iron that, but it makes sense to me
Yeah,
to
it does,
iron
it
it.
does make sense looking at it, to give it a bit of an iron, to get them creases.
Yeah, to hold, yeah, to crease it really well.
Yeah.
And then there's those, you sew those 3 different lines around the thing. I'll pull up my instructions and make sure I'm remembering properly. But
Did you,
yeah, that's great. You got the frame. That's
do you sew
wonderful.
the inner one first? The first.
I can't remember. I'll have to look. I can't remember if it's, Trudy says, yeah.
I think I sewed the inner one first.
Yeah, because I think that would stabilize it, wouldn't it? Maybe
Yeah.
the other.
Right,
That holds the frame in place.
right.
And what kind of stitch is it?
It's the Namukie Butsu.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's the back stitch, yeah. So it's the same thread that you've been using to do all the Joes and the Chos.
Well, when you do the stitch and you're going back on, the Nabutsu stitch, do we do it in a kind of a more straight way around the frame, or do you do it on a slant?
You always do it on a slant.
Right. Yeah.
So it's always the same. It's always the same. It's a uniform stitch all the way whenever you do that one. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Maria,
Yeah,
can I see the back of yours? Can I see the back? Oh, right. Okay.
Back's not pinned yet. I've not pinned
Okay.
the back, so I don't know if I'm supposed to do that as well.
We'll check. Yeah.
There was something about stitching it and needing to make sure I'm not going through to the silk. So to have that open at the back.
Right.
While doing the. Trudy's nodding her head there.
Yeah, there's that. You can't go through all the layers, yeah. But I'll pull out the instructions and look at those and make sure we're doing it by the book.
Great, thank you very much. That's me
Yeah.
then.
So Claire, what's going on?
Yeah, it's nice to be back after not being able to come for a little while. So I have marked out the frame, and so my plan was to iron the fabric, remeasure before I cut. And I've started getting my head into pinning.
Yeah. So have you, after you iron, you've marked it with the pencil, with the white leaded pencil. Have you made the lines with the little instrument that indents? Okay. Okay, good. So, and after
I was careful about the measuring, but I just, before I cut.
Yeah, that's good. Before you cut it, we all know that expression. Yeah. Good. Okay, so everybody's right around the frame stuff, except for Trudy. You're at the
Yeah, it's really
Straps.
lovely to be back. I've missed being here, just been too much life. So,
Gets in the way, doesn't it? Gets right in the way.
Yeah, right.
oh, so I think I'm now ready. I've done my little squares.
Great. Okay.
So they're done. And now, so I wrote to you about the measurements for the frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we all measured. Jan and Lynn and I were together one afternoon, and from the top of the frame to the nape of our necks was, for all of us, 40 centimeters.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote to John because you've got to include in the length of the strap the actual drop this measurement as well.
Right.
And he was very kind, and he sent me a breakdown of doing it.
Right.
But he's
Right.
only got 1 centimeter seam allowance. Don't you have to have a 1 centimeter at either end of the strap?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to be, so I think he put that in it, but he wanted you to multiply everything by 2.
Oh, okay. Okay. Right.
So what I did when I measured mine is I just took the tape measure all the way around to about there.
Yeah.
And then I added the length of the overlap times 2, because
Yeah.
you're going to need both of them. And then the length of the seam allowance.
And
times
that's a centimeter on either end of the strap.
2. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Then I think it's
Good.
91.4 then. That looks like.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was thinking mine was like 90 something.
Okay. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Great. Okay.
What
All
was yours-
right.
Oh, sorry, what was yours approximately, Trudy? So I know I'm not way out when I get to that bit.
40 centimeters for the nape of the neck to the top of the Rakasu. But I really like the way that Anne's described it, just using a tape measure to go around and come to the edges of the Rakasu. That sounds like a simpler thing to do on your own.
Yeah, so much
Yeah.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I need to cut it? So the straps are essentially 8.4 centimeters plus all the seam allowances. So that when they're
Right.
folded over.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
There'll be 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I think we've decided it doesn't matter, but just in case, we're saying the outside of the fabric. You very kindly sort of given me a piece here, and it says straps at the top. That's the outside of the fabric, isn't it?
That fabric, you mean the back side, front side?
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, great. Thank
Yeah. Yeah. There's no difference in either one.
you. Okay, great.
Okay, so let me look up the frame part, Maria, and see. So you folded under the seam allowances on both sides, the back and the, yeah. And you got the first corner marked, that one that's on the upper left.
Yeah, with a little bit of white thread.
Great, okay. And you've got a chalk rectangle on the face that's exactly the right, straight. The lines are straight, okay. Clear the back. You've done the pinning. So the frame to the face along the inside edge of the frame with the namukie butsu. Sew through the face and the interfacing only. The stitches don't go through the silk or the back of the frame. They should not be visible on the silk lining. Okay, great.
That'd be tricky.
It is, and it's a real finger and kind of feeling thing, because you, after a while, you really get a feeling of, did the needle go through the silk? Because it has a real different feel when it goes through that stiff silk taffeta. But I would say I really checked the back often to make sure that I haven't gone through.
Yeah.
Because you hate to go for a whole line and then realize, oh my gosh, I have stitches. Poor Peter did that and had to take out a bunch, but. So that's the story. You're doing the inner line of the frame on front, and you're being careful to just go through the front of the frame, the face, and the interfacing. So that's, you get a real feel for it.
Yeah, as you go along.
And for the inner edge along the frame, you are going to be using knots. When you get to the inner or the middle and the outer lines, you're not going to use any knots at all. But that first one, you do use knots, and you just hide them that same way, where you put it under kind of one of the corners, the little seam of one of the corners. You can do that.
Right, yeah.
Or just start it under the frame and then come back up.
Yeah. Do you start from, say if I've got the frame in the right way, sort of looking down at it, do I start from left to right? Is there a way to begin sewing?
Yeah, you start on that the first corner, the upper left corner, and go all the way around in a clockwise direction.
In a clockwise direction, so that's that way.
I know, you're going from about 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock to, so you're going around.
Right, yeah. So you start on the top left corner and then go across to the right corner. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Right, great. So it'll be like that kind of, yeah. It'll be the same in the same place as the other stitching, won't it? Yeah.
Right, yeah, it'll have the same slant.
Yeah.
The other stitching.
Great. Well, don't know about great. We'll see.
That's a nice project. You'll get well into this if not done with it today.
And to iron it first, you said to iron those creases in, those fold unders in.
I would, just because I think it would help you, like you said, get a nice sharp edge.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Claire.
I have a practice question, because so my measurements seem good, so I've started cutting. I've done the 2 short ends and I'm about to embark on the long ends, but I was interested in, I feel like I heard you say a while ago that it's kind of quite early in the process that the fabric is considered a Rakasu, and I was interested, given the kind of the very original history of rag robes, whether we treat the offcuts in any particular way.
Wow, I've never heard that question asked. It's a really good question. What's been your thinking about that?
It feels wrong to me to discard them, like they were not valuable.
That's a really interesting point. Yeah. What would you imagine doing with them? I mean, not in the future, sometime, but actually what would you imagine treating them as you cut them off? What do you see yourself doing with them?
I don't know. I think I can think of a couple of, I guess one option would be yeah, I can think of a few options. I guess one option is burning them, and like as we would with names we write for the memorial altar.
Yeah.
Or putting them with compost instead of refuse, so they go back
idea,
into the cycle of things.
Right.
Or a part of me almost wishes I hadn't finished sewing up the interfacing, so I could sort of tuck them behind between the face and the interfacing, and they'd still sort of be
Make
there.
them part. Yeah. That's a really interesting question. Yeah, I'll have to throw that out to the group of people that I have asked questions to. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was also thinking about saving them, and you make a little pincushion or something. You stuff a tiny little, you sew a tiny little poof or a square or whatever of,
Nice idea.
maybe out of your lining, your envelope lining fabric that's so beautiful, and then you could stuff them all in there, and you could use them and you could put some oil, some essential oil, you like the fragrance of, and kind of use it that way. But that's really interesting. Yeah, what do you do? I'm thinking about my sewing room at home and the floor. Now there's I'm sad to say there are scraps all over the floor. I'm not very good at keeping my space beautiful. Though I know that's part of it. I know that that's a part of this practice that is still really in the future for me, of being able to, make my space a sacred space and keep it that way, and fix it before I start and fix it before I end. And yeah, I'm not very neat.
I mean, we're all practicing in the mess of our lives.
Exactly.
Literally and metaphorically.
Exactly. But that's really interesting. It would be interesting to hear what other people here today think about, how do you relate to the scraps after you've cut them off? What's your feeling about, what do you do to them? How do you work with them?
Really appreciating the level of thought and thinking, oh. That's an option, because I think because I sew in the room I work in, I have to keep it tidy. I have to put everything away, so I can't leave anything out. So I think I have just thrown them away.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's really interesting, though. It sort of begs the question for me, thinking about the cloth.
Yeah.
And thinking about that it's cotton. So it was growing, it was in the soil, it was a seed, it got rain, it got sun, it was a beautiful green plant, it was harvested, it was cleaned and spun. All the people that did all that. So Claire, I really like that. I really like that idea that, I know that there's a tradition in Japan and in sewing teachers in the United States or sewing students in the United States of doing a little ceremony for broken needles and broken pins.
Mm.
But, and I'm not sure what it is. I've never participated in one, but it's a thing. So the scraps make all the sense in the world to me, doing something with that.
Oh, go ahead, Trudy.
I was going to say, I collect when I'm cleaning the ash from the incense. You collect all the little stubs of incense that aren't burnable anymore, and then you burn them at the end of the year. So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So with this, I thank you, Claire, for that question. I don't think I have many, if any, left, because I think I threw mine out too. But I was thinking of just taking a sheet of paper and gluing them on in some kind of way, and framing it, honoring the scraps.
Yeah, I kept mine they're in a little tub over there, and just but it was for a completely different reason, Claire. Your thoughts are wonderful. It's just made me think, thought provoking, and I've just kept them in case I needed to stick something back on somewhere, or I'd out measured, or dismeasured, or thought I'm keeping them just in case I need them. But yeah, I hadn't thought of that, Claire, and it's really. Yeah, it's really something to think about, isn't it? It's really making me think as you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great inquiry into, how do we treat things that aren't part of the thing we're doing?
And that we want to discard.
Right, that we just think, oh, I'm just like I've been thinking of, this was over, we're done with this. What's left over, I throw it away. And all that means. Yeah. So thank you for that. That's a really wonderful thing to think about.
Thanks, guys. It's really helpful for me to talk it through.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to step away for a minute and go present that to the people in the back room so they don't throw anything else away. So I found a book in Peg's library of Zen poems, it says. So they're not only poems that are written by Zen students and masters, but other poets as well. And the book is divided into seasons. So I thought I would read some autumn poems that somebody thinks are Zen poems. And just interrupt me if you have any questions or anything. So the author or the editor begins the section by writing, "No other season reminds us as acutely of impermanence as autumn. No matter how far removed we might be from the natural world, the sight of a fallen leaf reminds us that nothing lasts for long. Everything that is born is subject to decay. And still, the fall is a light with a mysterious glow. The exuberance of summer is over, for beauty's charm is but a few days' dream. Autumn invites reflection and forbearance, but can also tickle our somber mood by presenting us with a dazzling display of sunshine and warmth." This first poem is titled After R.M. Rilke, and that's by Primo Levi. Lord, it's time. The wine is already fermenting. The time has come to have a home, or to remain for a long time without one. The time has come not to be alone, or else we will stay alone for a long time. we will consume the hours over books or in writing letters to distant places, long letters from our solitude. And we will go back and forth through the streets, restless, while the leaves fall. The next poem. Morning glory, a beauty's charm, but a few days' dream. By Natsume Soseki. The one great pearl is always present. Dragon sons and daughters are always born of dragon parents. But how can it be spoken of? The rains have passed, and the autumn river runs deep and fast. Of yellow was the outer sky, in yellower yellow hewn, till saffron and vermilion slid, whose seam could not be shewn. Emily Dickinson. Opening their mouths, they await the parent birds in the autumn rain. Issa Kobayashi. Gathered together with the swept up chestnuts, fallen leaves. Fukada Kodojin. Garden gate suddenly banging shut. Autumn wind. Fukada Kodojin. Sowing leaves in the empty wood. From the deserted village, one lamplight dim. The traveler sees not a single shadow. Somewhere a dog barks at the cold stars. Fukada Kodojin. Half moon. The moon goes over the water. How tranquil the sky is. She goes scything slowly, the old shimmer from the river. Meanwhile, a young frog takes her for a little mirror. Federico Garcia Lorca. In an old pond, a frog ages while leaves fall. Nyosa Buson. I waited and I yearned for you. My blind stirred at the touch of the autumn breeze. Princess Nukala. In the dew dripping on the broad-flanked hill, waiting for you, I stood dampened by the dew of the hill. Prince Otsu. Night. Candle, lamp, lantern, and firefly. The constellation of the dart. Little windows of gold trembling, and cross upon cross rocking in the dawn. Candle, lamp, lantern, and firefly. Federico Garcia Lorca. Autumn sees the plants wither. Wild beauties decline together. All things cold now as pain. I turn to go home again. Xiao Men. The grasses and the trees change their colors, but to the wave blooms on the broad sea plain, there comes no autumn. Bunya Yasuhide. A man without feelings, even, would know sadness when the snipe start from the marshes on an autumn evening. Priest Tiago. On Evergreen Hill, where no tree turns crimson, the deer that haunt there, by their own belling, may know autumn has come. Onokatomi Yoshinibo. No man lives now in the warden's house by the Fuwa barrier. The timber is rotten, only autumn winds. Fujiwara Yoshitsune. Lamplit room, the spider stretches its shadow. Brian Tasker. On a bare branch, a rook roosts. Autumn dusk. Matsu Basho. Wind and silver. Greatly shining, the autumn moon floats in the thin sky, and the fish ponds shake their backs and flash their dragon scales as she passes over them. Amy Lowell. Persimmons lightly swaying, heavy with themselves. Virginia Bradley Young. The Red Ribbon Award for my first sunflower has faded to orange. Cam Holofield. Early morning wind in the umbrella of the pumpkin stand. Marlene Mountain. Picking the last pears, yellow windows hang in the dusk. Ruth Yarrow. autumn in goal. In autumn, a friend sent an apple. I made to eat it all at once. Red, too red. In my palm, heavy, heavy as the world. Suboi Shikjay. By fading torchlight, I squeeze out the last of my toothpaste. Kim Jones. At an old temple in the depths of Takano, in the province of Ki, I spend the night listening to raindrops through the cedars. Ryokan. Thunder moth. After the thunder moth comes to the village, covered with the pollen of the lilies in the village headman's garden. She flutters a little by the police box at the crossroads. Then, lofted on the wind, she soars higher than the Pausanias, higher than the alarm bell of the fire tower. Miyoshi Tatsuji. Moonlight gleaming on the grapes, the lovers can't stop laughing. Penny Harder. It rains in my heart as it rains on the town. What is this languorous ache that wounds my heart? Gentle, the sound of rain battering roof and ground. How sweet the sound of rain for the heart in pain. Paul Verlaine. My heart at evening. At nightfall, you hear the bat shriek. 2 black horses leap across the meadow. A red maple rustles. Along the way, a small tavern appears to the traveler. The young wine and nuts are delicious. It is wonderful to stagger, drunk, through the darkening forest. Through black branches comes to the ringing of grieving bells. Dew covers your face. George Trackle. The little house, no smaller than the world, nor I lonely, dwelling in all that is. Kathleen Rain. A thousand clouds among a myriad streams, and in their midst a person at his ease. By day, he wanders through the dark green hills. At night, he goes home to sleep beneath the cliffs. Swiftly the changing seasons pass him by, tranquil, undefiled, no earthly ties. Such pleasures, and on what do they rely? On a quiet calm, like autumn river water. Hanshan. My beloved friend, you and I had a sweet talk long ago one autumn night. Renewing itself, the year has rumbled along, that night still in memory. Ryokan. Evening coming, the office girl unloosening her scarf. Jack Kerouac. No one believes that death is the end. If after a day's harvesting he sees the sheaves shine and the grain smiles as it pours into his hand. Renee Shar. No, it is not in that lake among the crags, nor in that expansive and foaming seashore, nor in the ideal forest full of fears that I watch myself and go to ponder. It is here, in this room of a house, here among the walls without landscape, that I see romanticism, wing of what I didn't know of myself, take its flight. It is in us that there are all the lakes and forests, if we see clearly into what we are. It's not because the waves may break the green blank edges. Fernando Pessoa. The vine among the rocks, heavy with grapes, the shadows of September among the gold glint of the grass, among shining willow leaves, the small birds moving, silent in the presence of a new season. Denise Levertov. In the sound of cutting firewood, the autumn heavens go dark. Shinku Fukeda. Through a hole in a borrowed tent, the Milky Way. Steve Shapiro. Autumn drizzle, the slow ticking of the clock. Bruce Ross. Cloud maps shift across a windy sky as unknown countries ebb and flow. Francis Howell. From within the nostrils of the colossal Buddha comes out this morning's fog. Isa Kobayashi. Fall leaves, fall, die flowers away, lengthen night and shorten day. Every leaf speaks bliss to me, fluttering from the autumn tree. I shall smile when wreaths of snow blossom where the rose should grow. I shall sing when night's decay ushers in a drearier day. Emily Bronte. O cricket, act as the gravekeeper after I'm gone. Isa Kobayashi. Rust and a polished pheasant swoops low through mist with shrills to clear his path. Sorrow Weil. Twilight staples rust on the telephone pole. Alan Pizzarelli. A woodpecker's drilling echoes to the mountain clouds. Ida Takotsu. How beautiful. Red peppers after the autumn gale. Yosa Buson.
Anne?
Uh-huh.
It's all hard sewing. Listen, it's so lovely to listen to. When I've cut my interfacing and I think I've measured my straps.
Uh-huh.
It says pin. I think you sew with a matching thread. Is a matching thread the blue thread, not the silk thread?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
so it's the thread that looks the closest to the fabric.
And you just sew with just running stitch.
To do the interfacing to the, small running stitch.
Okay.
Yeah, to connect the interfacing to the strap, you mean?
Okay. I guess I've got interfacing which I've cut, and then I've got my straps marked, and then I'll cut my straps.
Uh-huh.
And then do I pin the interfacing to the strap first? Or do
So
I fold it over and...
you fold the strap in half lengthwise with the
Yep.
right sides together.
Yep.
So the chalk marks are on the outside, you can see them. And then you pin line to line on the ends and the sides. So the open end, the fold, you don't have to pin, obviously, because it's closed. But you're gonna pin on the two short ends, and then you're gonna pin across the two edges.
With my
but you're gonna leave 7 centimeters right in the center.
Yeah.
So before you start pinning,
Mark
fold it over and mark the,
And
Mhm.
and I just want to check. I think I've pinned and I'm ready to do the matching thread. So it looks like this.
Right. Show me one of the corners. Yeah, that looks right. Make sure that you mark the upper left-hand corner. That's corner number 1. And that's where the two pieces are really coming together.
Yes.
So you're going to be turning things all inside out. So mark that so you're able to know what it is when you get everything all sewn. And
Excellent. And then there was and so then I've read the instructions. So matching thread, running stitch with the a loose stitch over the point of the V.
Over the point, right.
And so I just knot at the 2 points of the V.
You're gonna start right at the seam allowance on one side. So you're not gonna sew in the seam allowance. And so you're gonna knot right there and then sew along and come over the top. So you're gonna get your piece of thread long enough to make the whole piece instead of stopping at the top and getting another piece of thread. Yeah, and then you're gonna make another knot right inside the seam allowance,
Brilliant. Opposite the
down
first
the
one.
other side. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
So Anne, I'm doing well. My
Good.
measurements look good, but
Great.
I marked my X's before I did the seam allowance line, so I've got to redo that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So I'm getting a lot of practice with this frame.
This is harder than it sounded. Like doing these, I have to put my other glasses on so I can see it.
I know.
Yeah, trying to not sew, not knowing what I'm sewing through and getting the
Yeah.
stitch neat and the same is really difficult.
Yeah.
I've just put it out 3 times, just 4 stitches 3 times. It just looked like a bundle of cotton rather than stitches, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah. Yeah.
is there a trick to it? Is it?
There's not. I mean, you do, as you do more and more stitches, you get a real feel for when have I gone too far?
Yeah.
When have I gone too deep? Gotten, caught the silk. But
Yeah, and it's just getting it neat, isn't it, as well, with having the pressure of the other layers.
right. Yeah, that it's a thick thing.
Yeah. To get like smaller stitches in, it's quite hard when you've got layers. So would you generally do them a little bit bigger round? Or is that no?
Sorry.
Try harder, Maria.
That's such a good idea.
Isn't it? Do massive ones.
Really big one.
Oh, dear, well, I'm getting their good unpicking technique going on. Thanks. I thought I'll check.
Yeah.
Just bring more stillness and mindfulness to it, I guess.
Yeah, that's really, I don't know, Trudy, did you have any suggestions about when you're sewing those lines around the frame, about not going too far, that you don't want to go through the silk from the front, then you don't want to go through the...
I think I found a way to put my fingers, because you've got room at the back of the frame, haven't you? The back of the frame is kind of soft and loose, so it's kind of like, I think it was something about where I put my fingers so that I couldn't feel the needle coming through and catching my finger. So I knew I was just inside the fabric.
Right, yeah. Get what you mean, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember sort of holding it and sort of sewing it in such a way that I could feel that.
Have your
So I
finger
think
right,
it was
right behind it.
yeah, I think it was a tactile thing for me rather than as well as a visual one.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if that works. I'll let you know.
Right.
Getting it neat as well with it being so thick, isn't it? It's getting it the same stitch.
Yeah.
When you're going through the thick
Yeah,
bit.
so many layers, yeah.
And is this an appropriate size running stitch, if you can see where the needle's going in and out?
Yeah, it's basically just basting. So, they want you to do kind of a small one so it stays secure in one place when you get to the real sewing.
Perfect. Yeah, it's like a few mil.
Yeah, a few mil.
Okay.
So now I've got a book called Zen Forest, Sayings of the Master. And the foreword is by Gary Snyder, so I'm going to read the foreword because I like Gary Snyder. And he's a Zen master. He says, the Mojave Indians of the lower Colorado River put all the energy they gave to aesthetics and religious affairs into the recitation of long poetic narratives. Some of the epics are remarkably precise in describing the deserts of the Southwest, but the raconteurs held that they were all learned in dreams. By another sort of inversion, the world of Zen Buddhism, with its no dependence on words and letters, and unadorned halls, plain altars, dark robes, created a large and very sophisticated literary culture. It registers the difficulty of the play between verbal and nonverbal in the methods of the training halls. The highly literate Zen people were also well acquainted with secular literature, and they borrowed useful turns of phrase from any source at all, part of the toolkit to be employed when necessary, and often in a somewhat different way. A final step was the sifting of the Chan texts, Chinese poems and proverbs, Buddhist sutras, and Taoist and Confucian classics one more time. This was done in Japan in the 16th and 17th centuries, and the result was the Zenrin Kushu, phrases from the Zen forest. Most of the phrases gathered are from Chinese poetry, so that R.H. Blythe could say that the Zenrin Kushu is the Zen view of the world on its way through poetry to haiku. A dumb man has eaten a bitter cucumber. Bite your middle finger with your clenched fist. On the saddle, no man. Underneath it, no horse. Saying fire won't burn your mouth. Saying water won't drown you. A piece of dust in the eye, illusory flowers dance wildly. Each time you show it, each time it's new. One encounter, once for all. A phrase completely to the point, the eternal donkey hitching post. Settle in a phrase, the essence of Zen. The first stem, the second crooked, the third, the fourth, slanting. One click makes him forget everything. One moon shows in every pool. In every pool, the one moon. A word once spoken can't be caught by rapid horses. The tree splits the spring wind in two. Southern branches stretch to the warmth, northern to the cold. An inch of tortoise hair weighs 7 pounds. Shouldering the plank till death. Thunder rolls once, a clear wind rises. One man's speech is a rapid stream, the other's simple and artless. One true man of no rank. One blind man leads many blind men into the fire hole, hand in hand. Get all Tang china aboard the ship of a single leaf. One leaf fluttering tells of autumn all over the country. Store the whole world in a grain of millet. Boil mountains and rivers into a 2-quart pot. Between snipe and clam, between snipe and clam, the fight doesn't stop. Both fall into the fisherman's hands. I'll explain in detail why Bodhidharma came to China. Listen to the evening bell sounds. Watch the setting sun. Blue mountains after rainfall, much bluer. Rain bamboos, wind pines, all preach Zen. Covering one's ears to steal the tinkling bell. Okay, you have a question.
I have. So I've pinned all the way, and I've done it that way so I can follow the line, so I can really make sure that my pins are exactly on the line on either side. And now I do just a running stitch all the way with my gap of 7 centimeters. I didn't really understand the make the square corners. So it's something about
Okay.
make square corners by folding over end and side seams one on top of the other. So, oh, I see. So you'd sort of peel them back and fold over?
No, you're gonna fold them together. So you're gonna, what I'm looking at, what is in my mind right now is whether you need to have the interfacing pinned to the straps at the same time.
It says make the square corners, be careful to keep the sides of the corner perpendicular.
Right.
Fold seam over but do not iron. Place interfacing on top of strap on top of folded over seam.
Right, so that's later. So the interfacing is later. So you've got it pinned.
Yeah, and then when it's sewn, I fold those over to make a really tidy.
Right, so you're gonna fold first the vertical edge, and then over the top you're gonna fold the horizontal edge.
Great.
If that makes sense. So you make a nice little.
That's perfect.
Nice little
thank
square.
You. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then they've got you ironing that nice little where you fold it over all the seam allowances and tack it. So just sewing a little stitch there to keep the corner folded up. So those corners are going to be, when you turn the whole thing inside out, they're going to be really visible.
Yeah.
So it's nice to take some time with them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I get that now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One thing you can do that's not in the instructions, I don't know, sometimes when you sew regularly, when you've got a corner like that, and so you're going to end up with like 4 layers. Actually, you're going to end up with 6 layers of fabric. You can kind of trim
like across the corner.
Exactly. exactly, to kind of get rid of some of that bulk, because,
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's what we used to do when we used to cover books at school.
Exactly, exactly. Did you cover books with like old paper bags?
We did, and wallpaper and all sorts.
Newspaper? Yeah. That's
Wrapping
funny. I
paper.
hadn't thought of that in a long time.
Yeah, the wrapping paper was really thick, wasn't it, to get round, because it was either wood chip or embossed or.
This little Zen forest is pretty much little short, tiny koans. But I do like the one about the store the whole world in a grain of millet, boil mountains and rivers into a 2-quart pot. Drive off the ox from a farmer, snatch the food from a hungry man. No one is seen deep in the mountains, only voices resounding. Empty-handed come, empty-handed go. Light as a hair tip, heavy as a mountain. The sounds of a valley stream wash your ears clean. The canopy like pine trees touch your eyes green. Valley sounds, the eloquent tongue, mountain form. Isn't it pure body? The moon sets, leaving no shadow on the creek. The clouds come, dressing up the mountaintop. Sweeping leaves by the valley in the evening sun, a monk. One rooster's cry preaches the heaven and earth dawn. Seeing illusion, but not recognizing it, it collapses on itself. Watch it and take it right now, or it's gone for 1,000 years. Ride your horse along the edge of a sword, hide yourself in the midst of flames. Words, 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 fluttering drizzle and snow. Silence, 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 a roaring thunderbolt. The shimmering lake surface charms the kingfishers. The grass color makes the dragonflies drunk. A grass coat-clad old man on a solitary boat, fishing alone in the snowy river. I think I'm going to stop reading. It looks like people here are starting to clean up, put things together. So I'm going to do the same. So we have 5 minutes. Thank you all for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you all for
Thank you all.
your support.
And thanks, Claire, for that wonderful question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have to see what different people do. That'll be great. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.